Today we're going to talk about some buying tips. We're going to talk about winning auctions and winning buy it nows. So obviously winning a buy it now seems pretty straightforward, but sometimes it's not. Make sure that you're looking if there's any hidden charges in regards to shipping and handling that's not associated with the buy it now price. Sometimes it has free shipping, sometimes it doesn't. Make sure you're aware of that. And if it's like international shipping, make sure that you're looking at the weight of the package and double checking to make sure that they're charging you the right amount for shipping internationally, because sometimes they could be charging you a lesser amount, and then when it comes time to check out, they might ask you for a little more than you were expecting. So make sure that everything is straightforward in regards to international shipping. Shipping around the continental United States is pretty straightforward, especially if you know exactly how much it weighs and the size of it, or you could estimate the size of it. You could figure out yourself if you're getting an accurate shipping price. So when you're buying and selling and you're trying to move products and you're trying to win an auction, and you're also trying to move that auction at a certain set price that you have, if you don't want to have a reserve, because having a reserve tends to make people not be attracted to the listing unless the reserve is a reasonable price, where the threshold is like 50% of what you're looking for, or the expected value of the listing. But when you're on the opposite end, you're on the buying end, and you keep bidding on an item, and the price just keeps going up, but you're not seeing the reserve being met, so you're not getting into that zone either. And some people will get discouraged from that because they just want a realistic price. If you have a set expectation on what you're selling this item for, list it at a fixed price. If you're trying to get more than the fixed price of which you don't want to undersell yourself, then don't have a reserve at all and just let it be a feeding frenzy, because that's usually the best way to attract buyers to your listing, especially for auctions, is to just start it at 99 cents no matter what the value is. I mean, unless it's something that's extremely rare, like you're talking rare comic books or something that's extremely rare coin. Those type of situations, you're going to want to assess them differently and have reserve prices. But in regards to something normal that you're selling that could be anywhere under $100, you definitely should have it at 99 cents and just let the feeding frenzy happen. I've been able to capture the maximum value for most of my listings just by doing that, not having a reserve price. Now, on the opposite end, when you're buying, and the buy it nows, obviously we've already discussed, to make sure that all the prices that you're expecting to pay are what is being represented, and there's nothing else that's hidden or beyond what you're seeing. But when you're doing auctions, normally there's a lot of the time people will throw bids in as soon as a listing starts. They throw it in there as $1, and what that does is that allows them to then get notifications about the listing, what's going on with it, if it was removed, if someone's sending messages out through the listing for updates. It'll also let them know when the listing's about to end. So when you're sitting there watching it all the way to the end, and it gets down to the red zone, as I like to call it, closer down towards the last hour is probably going to be when you're going to want to start hawking the auction, because the more people that throw their bids in earlier on in the game, it's going to drive up the price. And what you really want to do is you don't want anyone really to bid on the listing at all, including yourself, until it gets close to the end of it. Now, a lot of the time you won't see a seller that's going to yank the listing down if nobody bids on it down to the last hour. They're just going to wait to see. I mean, a lot of stuff can happen in the last 10 minutes, in the last minute, in the last 30 seconds, a lot of stuff can happen. Because if you're a seller and you're looking at your listing and no one's bid on your listing and it's got an hour left or it's got 20 minutes left, leave it up. Because the first thing you should do before you even consider that is to look at how many people are watching the listing. That's going to let you know how many people are hawking on it. So if you got 50 people waiting for this listing to get towards the end and they're watching it, or they have it on their watch list, maybe 30 of them are actually really watching it and 20 of them just bookmarked it because they wanted to return to it later. It should be a pretty good indicator about 60% to 66% of the people watching your listings are actively watching them, not just sitting there passively having them on their list, and then they'll just see them on the ended category when they go on there and look at their watch list. So that should give you a pretty good indicator on what type of bidding strategies you have going on your listing by give you an indicator of the type of people and how many. I should say, not the type. Well, it'll tell you what their feedback is, so you'll actually know if they're newer people bidding on your item or older people to the site. On that, it won't really tell you anything else. But when you're trying to win a listing, I would recommend honestly to wait towards about the last 5 minutes. Start watching it, and make sure that you're not on a wireless connection unless it's a really strong wireless connection, being plugged in directly, or to be on the fastest available network possible. Sometimes it might not actually be a home computer, especially if you live in an apartment building where you have a lot of people that are wired through the network that your building's wired to. All you need is a few families to be on Netflix to drain your signal at a certain peak time, and you wouldn't even know it. And you could be trying to win a listing and your page isn't refreshing as fast. Sometimes it could be your phone. You have LTE. It could be a faster connection on your phone to get a more accurate bid. I mean, most of the times when I'm trying to buy something and it's really crunch time, I'm usually doing it on my phone on the LTE network, trying to win the bids, because it has like an almost instant refresh rate for all listings and bidding. Versus a computer, sometimes it does go a little slower on the internet end of it, especially if you're not hardwired to your modem or router. So make sure you're on a secure, fast, reliable internet connection when you're placing your auctions, and try to wait towards the end, the last few minutes, and try to throw your bid in there with confidence. I usually will start bidding around 50 to 40 seconds. I'll start getting engaged with tossing my bid in and seeing what's going on, and keep hitting refresh, and depending on who's throwing what in there. But when you do actually finally throw your bid in, make sure that you place your bid high enough that if multiple people throw their bids in at the same time, like let's say you wait to the last 5 seconds, and then it's 5 seconds left, you type in what your threshold is, like the current bid is 99 cents, but let's say the item is worth $75, so you say I'm willing to pay $60, $65 max for this, because it's worth $75. I can buy it right now for $85 or $80, but it's worth around $75 to me. But I'm willing to pay about $60 to $65. So you throw in your bid, but when you throw it in at the max that you're looking to throw down. Don't do it where you're going to throw it in 2 bids. Throw in 1 bid, but make sure that it's the winning bid. So if the other person doesn't want it as bad as you in regards to what you're bidding on, and they say, I'm really only willing to spend $50 on this, so if this guy wants to go at it, maybe he puts $40 and I win with $50, and he makes like a $25 savings on what the average market price is, but not maybe what the going rate is, but what the market price is right now. So I do suggest that when you do throw your bid in, to throw it in at the max threshold you're willing to pay for this. If you were to go back and forth, what is the max that you would be like, okay, this is the most I'll pay, I'm not going to go in? Because a lot of the times it's going to be a lot more than what the other people who are bidding against you want to put in and put on this, because they see it at 99 cents or they see it at a low bid. They're going to be skeptical as to why it hasn't been bid on yet either. So it could also be that not a lot of people are watching it, but it could be a popular item, just not a lot of people are watching it at the moment. Like, for example, during holiday time, depending on what religion you are, you may or may not be observing certain holidays, and those certain holidays might be driving traffic away from certain listings. And if you happen to be the fortunate one to be watching a listing that normally would be yielding a higher price, but no one's there to bid on it, you might actually get something for a cheaper price than normally the market value, which is why I'm explaining it like this, because it's a little different depending on a lot of different parameters that could be involved with the auction process. Especially if a listing ends on Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning, most people are probably at work. If this is ending in the United States time, even no matter what time zone you're in, 9:30 in the morning, you're going to be within 2 hours from that. So it'll either be 7:30 or it'll be 11:30, and no matter which time zone you're in, that spans across the whole United States. So most of the time, people are being pretty busy or active during that time, whether it's getting up, getting their morning routine in, or they're already at work. those times are pretty much dedicated. So you might be winning something that might normally be worth, $85, but you might get it for 60 or 65 just because of the certain time of day that the listing is ending on. You're going to have a listing that ends on a Sunday at 3 o'clock. You're going to have a better chance, or Sunday at 8 o'clock at night. You're going to have a better chance of more people being active with watching the bid, because most of the time that's downtime for a lot of people. They're already getting ready for the next week, and they're already settled down with their families and just kind of relaxing for the remainder of the weekend. And most of them are probably browsing on their tablets or smartphones or looking on eBay for things. So there's going to be more traffic during those times. So if you have your listings from a seller's perspective ending at those times, those high traffic times, usually early night times, upwards till about 9, 10 o'clock. It tends to dip off after 10 o'clock, 10 to midnight pretty much. Midnight on the East Coast is pretty much the cutoff, is when it starts really dipping off. I mean, you might get some sales through the night that might trickle in, but for the most part, it'll start picking up again around 5 to 4 a.m. Because that's, somewhere else it could be 6 a.m. So, but again, it all depends on the day of the week, the time of the week, especially if you're doing listings and you're trying to get maximum value. Know that these are the days that you're going to want to have your listing ending on, because you'll have the most people looking at them. And adversely, if you're the buyer trying to buy the best deal for certain items, look for listings that are ending on the opposite times of what I just mentioned. The times where most people will be at work or will be occupied or are going to be busy. During that time where a lot of people won't be online watching or hawking auctions and listings. That's going to be your best route or strategy to winning listings. And knowing what your threshold is when you're going into the listing, know what you're bidding on and what it's worth to you, so that you can understand the parameters and the framework of what you're bidding on. Because if you can't place the appropriate bid on what you're trying to win, you could potentially lose out on a good deal, and you might end up having to pay more because you hesitated, because you didn't think that you might have went a little more, but then you realize, hey, I might have went a little more. Most of the time, is your initial instinct is going to be the most reasonable, and you should probably just go with it, because you might only get one chance to get it at this set price. And you might be searching forever, waiting for another one to come in at that price that you could have had it at. So those are probably the most best strategy practices, I guess, for accurately winning auctions on eBay. That's really going to be the best, is to just wait till the end of the listing before you start bidding. Don't place bids early on. Add them to your watch list, because if a seller knows that he or she has a bunch of people watching their listing, they're not going to yank it down. But if no one's watching the listing and no one's bidding on the listing, they might yank it down just to revise it and look at it and say, well, what's going on here? Are my pictures good? Is my description good? Am I not describing this right? What's going on? No one's watching it. No one's bidding on it. But if people are watching it, then they know that just no one's gotten to the point where they're ready to commit to bidding on it yet.